podcast that's getting a lot of attention. It's called The Man Who Calculated Death. And it really chronicles the discovery of a family's history and the relation to the development of a major weapon for Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. I mean, imagine that as a family discovering that. It's quite extraordinary indeed. There it is. It is now out, and you can hear this podcast and should check out this podcast. Don't take my word for it. Take the producer of the podcast word for it. She is the wonderful Lisa Joyner. Hi, Lisa.
Of course, I am not at all biased, Mark.
Well, the story seems, I mean, insanely compelling.
It is.
Tell us about it. Yeah.
It's an incredible story because my dear friend and somebody you know, Suzanne Rico, who used to do local news here in Los Angeles, we've been friends for years. And we worked together for a short period of time. But to truncate the story, one night we were out to dinner, and it was me and my husband and her husband. And she was talking about, her family history. And she said, oh yeah, my grandfather apparently had something to do with he was a crazy, super smart scientist, and he worked for Adolf Hitler. And I was like, come again? You don't just drop that, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're just going to set that aside. And this was a history she didn't know that much about because her mom had sort of buried it and sort of made it seem like a fairy tale to her, something that was, but she realized that her mom had so much trauma from living through this war. So Suzanne started talking to me about this story, and it really was a compelling story that made you think, gosh, this man is a horrible man. He's a Nazi, how do you, as a person, Suzanne being married, there's Robert Lesser as a woman married to a Jewish man, how do you reconcile this? But then as we peeled back the layers and we dug a little deeper, he kind of had no choice at that point. I mean, what would you have done? What would you do for your family at that time to survive, right? And that was his talent. And he ended up making a weapon of mass destruction that is still used today. So we decided to do a podcast about it, and she went back in time, basically. She and her sister packed up and went to Germany and went and walked in the footsteps of her grandfather, her mother, who was traumatized by all this. And actually, they unearthed the truth about how her grandmother was killed. They never knew this. They never knew what happened. They thought it was retribution for the grandfather's work. And we find out later it was not.
Wow. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the family digested this material. They digested this story of the father who was essentially left with no choice but to develop this weapon for Hitler. Yeah. What I'm getting is that they were sort of vaguely aware of it. Is that what you're saying? Or
they were, but as the second generation, as a granddaughter who had never met the grandfather and just only heard these little stories, all they had to go on was, basically what happened is when Suzanne's mom was on her deathbed, she was dying of cancer, her mother said, can you do me this one last favor? Can you finish my memoir? Like, how do you finish a personal memoir, first of all? And then she said, it's about my father and his work with this massive, this secret super weapon for Hitler. And Suzanne went, okay, I'm not really sure how to do this. So she got reliable World War II experts, and she visited the place where the bombing happened, where her grandmother was killed. And she talked to all these people, and she brought along her two tantes, which is German for aunts, who are in their 90s, sharp as a tack, remember every detail, and they become narrators through the story.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
How many episodes is it?
There's 9 episodes now. They are on Wondery Plus. We've just finished dropping them, and then you can get them on Apple and Spotify and everything as well. But The first one will get you in the mood, and you're going to know who this woman was, the mother was, and who Suzanne is, and why this mission is so important. And what I challenge the listener to is, you think you have an idea how you feel about this man. By the end, you may feel completely different.
Oh, that's terrific. It's super intriguing. And I feel as though World War II history is so layered. You know, I feel like the history that I learned was sort of superficial. And then all of these stories within the history of the rise of Nazi Germany and the way the war was prosecuted, these are all things that, you know, are filled in as details with every passing hour almost. And like, this is another one of those massively intriguing stories that I never really would have thought I would trip over. I'm so glad that you brought it. So there are 9 episodes
100%.
here. Yeah,
100%. And Mark, what's wonderful is that you can't, even if you're like, I don't need a history lesson. Basically what it does is it takes a family's history and shows you what their history has to do with world history. And so you kind of go along on this transformative sort of journey back in time and discover an 80-year-old secret. Why this woman was killed, who did it, who was responsible. And she comes face to face, Suzanne comes face to face with he was a child at the time. Her father was responsible for this child, this 9-year-old, being in a concentration camp and building this weapon. And she has to face him, come face to face with him. And the humanity between these two people, you talk about a divided world that we live in.
Oh, did we just lose her? What happened? We lose her?
It just brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah, and speaking of tears, I'll just finish by saying your work is it's so well done. You're so careful about the things that you decide to do and the way that you do them. And that's why I'm really looking forward to getting into this podcast, The Man Who Calculated Death. I remember Long Lost Family, which was a TV show that Lisa hosted and produced. And I was in tears every week. I mean, and these stories so well told of these people searching for family members, et cetera. I have such mad respect for the work you do, and I know this is going to be great. I haven't gotten into it yet, and I'm really looking forward to getting to it. The Man Who Calculated Death. I hope this won't make me cry like Long Lost Family did, because I can't take much more in the way of tears.
It could be a necessary cry, Mark.
Okay,
no, there'll be times when you'll cry, there'll be times when you gasp, and there will be times when you're joyful. So
it sounds riveting more than anything. So The Man Who Calculated Death, get it where your podcasts take you. It's on Wondery Plus also as a podcast platform, but it's also across other platforms too. Hey, Lisa, congratulations. Really great to see you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Mark.
Happy Man Who Calculated Death holidays.
Sure, should be a natural one.
All right. Lisa Joyner, everybody. Thanks, Lisa. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.